topic C2 4.5, the carbon cycle. Following on from all the stuff we've learnt about rocks and their different types and their formations, we're going to look at how the carbon moves out through the system of the Earth. So carbon dioxide, carbon and oxygen, is vital, and without it plants cannot make their food. So the carbon dioxide is needed in photosynthesis, whereas photosynthesis cannot happen and therefore plants cannot make their food. Without CO2, the Earth would also be too cold for life as we know it, because CO2, it's a greenhouse gas and it traps heat in the Earth. Without it there, all the radiations, the heat from the sun would just come into our atmosphere and leave again and would be too cold. Okay, so carbon dioxide is constantly entering and leaving the Earth's atmosphere. So I'm going to look at some processes now that add carbon dioxide and remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. If we remember, the atmosphere is what surrounds the Earth, and there's different layers of it, and the closest layer to the Earth is called the troposphere. So processes that add carbon dioxide to the atmosphere are respiration. So respiration transfers energy from food and plants and animals, so us included. CO2 is a waste product of respiration. So respiration is the chemical reaction that humans and animals use to produce energy. Carbon dioxide is what we breathe out, so this gets released into the atmosphere. Combustion, so this is when we burn fuels such as wood, petrol and methane. They produce CO2 because they've got carbon locked up in them, and when we burn it releases this carbon. Burning fossil fuels, so coal, oil and natural gas, also adds CO2 to the atmosphere. Processes that remove carbon dioxide, so photosynthesis is one of those processes. So plants use carbon dioxide and water to make glucose, which is the food that they need, so they take in carbon dioxide through their leaves. Also, carbon dioxide can be dissolved into the oceans. Now only a certain amount can be dissolved in there, but it is a process or a way of removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So what is the carbon cycle? So the carbon cycle shows where carbon enters and leaves different parts of the Earth. So the atmosphere is one part of the Earth, and there are also carbon stores, places where there's lots of carbon that's locked up and not out in the atmosphere. So if CO2 is added and removed from the atmosphere at the same rate, the concentration does not change. So if it's added and removed at the same time or using the same amount, then the concentration of carbon dioxide around us stays the same and everything sort of stays balanced as it is now. So carbon stores are places where carbon is kept when it is not in the atmosphere, and these include in the oceans, in sedimentary rocks, in fossil fuels, and in plants and animals and the soil. So we've got carbon inside our bodies, our cells made up of it. It is quite a key component of what we're made up of. So there are 5 carbon stores where a lot of carbon is kept. So a carbon store can be in carbon can be stored in different forms. So it can be in a solid, it can be in a gas, it can be in a liquid state. It can form many different ones. So I'm just going to show you a picture of the carbon cycle now, which is a bit more of a visual diagram, and basically just confirms what I've just explained. So the atmosphere is represented here. Photosynthesis takes carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, respiration adds it back in. We respire, animals respire. We've got dissolving and photosynthesis take carbon into the seas, respiration and coming out of a solution so it can evaporate from the ocean as well. Sedimentary rocks are a carbon store. Remember, they are formed when rocks are broken down, little sediments are come and form layers, and they're compacted down. They trap carbon into those layers. When there is no oxygen, so decay in the absence of oxygen, fossils are formed, and these also trap carbon. Land-based animals and plants in the soil, and obviously some of those can die and decompose as well, and decay leads to fossil formation and carbon storage too. And burning fossil fuels, so for example in our cars, or we can use them for heating and things like that, also releases carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. So this is a diagram of the carbon cycle showing where it all moves around our system, and it can change different forms throughout this system.